Turn on your kitchen tap. Now imagine nothing comes out. Not a trickle, not a drip, nothing. Most people think losing water would be inconvenient. The truth is much worse, because water isn't something you use a few times a day, it's something you use constantly, without noticing, making coffee, brushing your teeth, flushing the toilet, washing your hands, cooking dinner, cleaning dishes. Water quietly supports almost everything, and that's why losing it catches people completely off guard. Not because it's rare, because people never imagine life without it. So if running water disappeared tomorrow, what would actually matter most? Let's start with the thing people underestimate the most. Stored drinking water. People often assume they'll figure something out later, but water is different from almost every other supply. You cannot delay needing it. Food can wait. Water cannot. The average person needs drinking water every single day. Not next week. Not eventually. Today. That's why bottled water disappears so quickly whenever people hear about water disruptions. Everyone suddenly realizes the same thing at once. The tap isn't helping anymore. And that's when preparation stops being theoretical. The second thing that matters is water containers. This sounds obvious, until people need them. Imagine a friend offers access to water. Imagine a community distribution point opens. Imagine rainwater collection becomes possible. How do you transport it? Where do you store it? Most households have surprisingly few containers once they actually start counting, and that's why buckets, jugs, and water containers become incredibly valuable. The third thing people forget is paper plates and disposable utensils. Nobody gets excited about paper plates until washing dishes becomes difficult. Think about a normal meal. Plate, bowl, cup, fork, knife, spoon. Every meal creates more washing. Without running water, that problem grows rapidly. Paper products suddenly solve a problem people didn't even realize was coming. That's why experienced households often keep them around. Not for convenience, for flexibility. The fourth thing is wet wipes. Most people view wet wipes as optional, a convenience item. Then water disappears. Suddenly they're not optional anymore, because hygiene still matters. People still need to clean hands, clean faces, clean surfaces. Wet wipes help bridge the gap when normal washing becomes difficult, and the value of that becomes obvious very quickly. The fifth thing is hand sanitizer. Worry-nin. This doesn't seem important when water flows normally, but hand hygiene doesn't stop mattering because the tap stopped working. If anything, it matters more. People quickly discover how often they wash their hands during a normal day, far more often than they ever realized. And that's where sanitizer becomes incredibly useful. But the next 5 items become important for reasons most people never see coming. The sixth item is cash. This surprises many people. After all, cash feels outdated. Cards are easier, phones are easier, digital payments are everywhere, until they aren't. Imagine waking up and hearing that stores are still open. You grab your keys, drive to the nearest supermarket, find bottled water, maybe a few canned foods, a flashlight, a pack of batteries. You feel relieved because you got there before everyone else. Then you reach the checkout. The cashier looks exhausted, the card terminal's dark, the internet connection is down, and the only words you hear are, cash only. Suddenly your bank balance doesn't matter very much. Your phone doesn't matter very much because your money exists, but you can't access it. This has happened repeatedly during major storms, hurricanes, and widespread power outages. Not because stores wanted to refuse cards, because they couldn't process them. People often assume technology will always work. Most of the time, it does. Then a disruption happens and everyone remembers that digital systems still depend on physical infrastructure, power, internet, communication networks. When those systems struggle, cash becomes useful again. Not because it's better, because it's independent. The irony is that most people who laugh at emergency cash would be grateful to have it if they suddenly needed to buy the last case of water on a shelf. That's why cash remains on preparedness lists year after year, not because it's old-fashioned, because it solves a very specific problem, and when that problem appears, it appears fast. The seventh item is a manual can opener. This one sounds almost ridiculous, until it happens. Imagine spending months building a pantry, rows of canned soup, canned vegetables, canned meat, canned beans, shelves packed with food. You feel prepared. Then the power goes out. Hours pass, maybe longer. You decide to open some of that food, you walk into the kitchen, grab a can, and suddenly realize your can opener plugs into the wall. People laugh when they hear this, then they walk into their own kitchens and discover the same thing. It's one of those mistakes that's completely invisible until the exact moment it becomes important, and that's what makes it dangerous. A pantry full of food feels reassuring, but reassurance disappears quickly when access becomes a problem. The best preparedness items are often boring, they're not impressive, they're not expensive, they simply remove friction. A manual can opener is one of those tools. It sits quietly in a drawer for years. Then one day it becomes one of the most useful objects in the house. That's why experienced people often focus on small practical tools before buying expensive equipment. Because small tools solve real problems. The 8th item is hygiene supplies, soap, toothpaste, toilet paper, shampoo, cleaning products. Nobody gets excited about these things. Nobody shows off a stockpile of toothpaste. Yet when stores become unavailable, these are often the items people miss first. Why? Because they're part of daily life. You don't notice them when they're there. You notice them when they're gone. Imagine waking up and discovering you only have a few days of toothpaste left. Or one roll of toilet paper. Or almost no soap. At first it doesn't seem serious. Then a few more days pass, and suddenly those simple items start feeling extremely important. Hygiene affects comfort, confidence, health, routine. And routine matters more than people realize. When normal life becomes disrupted, people cling to familiar habits. Brushing your teeth, washing your hands, taking a shower, cleaning your home. These things create a sense of normality. Without them, stress grows much faster. That's why experienced households often prioritize basic everyday supplies, not because they're dramatic, because they're used constantly. The basics matter more than people think, and they matter much earlier than most people expect. The 9th item is a way to charge devices. People don't appreciate electricity until they start losing access to it. At first, everyone's phone is fully charged. No problem. Then, the hours pass. 90%, 85, 72, 61. Every number starts feeling more important, because your phone isn't just entertainment anymore, it's information, communication, weather updates, emergency contact, navigation, news. A dead phone means losing access to all of those things. That's why power banks have become increasingly valuable, not because they're exciting, because they buy time. Every extra hour of battery life gives you more options, more information, more flexibility, and flexibility becomes extremely valuable when stores are unavailable. Most people don't realize how dependent they are on charged devices until the charging stops. Then, they notice immediately. The 10th item is warmth. Blankets, warm clothing, extra layers, sleeping bags. People focus on food constantly. Then, forget comfort. Comfort matters. A lot. Cold nights feel longer. Sleep becomes harder. Patience disappears faster. A good blanket changes that instantly. The same goes for warm clothing. Most people don't think about these things when they're standing in a warm store, but they think about them at 2 o'clock in the morning when temperatures drop and the heating isn't working. That's when warmth stops being a luxury and starts feeling essential. The 11th item is information, specifically a reliable way to get it. Most younger viewers have grown up with instant information. Phones, apps, social media, search engines, everything available immediately, until it isn't. Imagine hearing a rumor that stores may reopen tomorrow. Another rumor says next week. Someone online claims supplies are arriving. Someone else says they're not. Without reliable information, people start making decisions based on guesswork, and guesswork creates mistakes. That's why radios continue appearing on preparedness lists. Not because they're old, because they're independent. They don't care if your internet connection is down. They don't care if social media stops updating. They simply provide information, and information changes everything. A household that understands what's happening stays calmer than a household operating entirely on rumors. The value of information becomes obvious very quickly when uncertainty arrives. People want answers, they want timelines, they want updates, and the ability to receive those updates can be surprisingly valuable. The 12th and final item isn't something you can buy tomorrow. It's a plan. And it's arguably the most important thing on this list. Because supplies are only useful if people know how they're going to use them. Imagine a household with food, water, batteries, medicine. Everything they need. Now imagine nobody knows where anything is. Nobody knows how much to use. Nobody knows what happens next. That's a problem. Planning removes uncertainty. Who checks on relatives? How much water gets used each day? Which supplies are reserved? What happens if conditions last longer than expected? These decisions are easier before pressure arrives, not after. That's why planning consistently outperforms panic. People often assume they'll figure everything out later. Then later arrives, and stress makes every decision harder. Prepared households aren't necessarily the households with the most supplies. They're often the households that already made decisions. That's a huge advantage. Because uncertainty is exhausting. Every decision requires energy. Every unknown creates stress. A plan removes those unknowns. Now step back and look at the entire list. Water, medicine, batteries, shelf-stable food, flashlights, cash, hygiene supplies, charging solutions, warmth, information, a plan. Notice something. Nothing here is glamorous. Nothing here is expensive. Most of these items are ordinary, and that's exactly the point. People imagine preparation as something dramatic. Massive stockpiles, expensive gear, rooms packed with supplies. Real life usually looks different. Most problems are surprisingly ordinary. You don't miss luxury items first. You miss practical items first. The things you use every day without noticing. The things you assume will always be available. The things you never think about replacing until they're gone. That's what makes store closures so interesting. They reveal dependencies, not weaknesses. Dependencies. They show people what they actually rely on. Electricity, water, transportation, supply chains, distribution networks, thousands of systems quietly working together every day. Most of the time nobody notices. Then one part slows down, and suddenly everyone notices. That's why the smartest preparation isn't usually extreme. It's practical, a slightly deeper pantry. Extra batteries, basic medicine, stored water, small adjustments, small advantages. Those things remove enormous amounts of stress later. And stress matters. Because stressed people make rushed decisions. Prepared people make calmer decisions, and when stores close unexpectedly, calm is one of the most valuable resources a household can have, because if stores close tomorrow, these are the items most people would wish they'd bought today.